call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.
What up? Welcome back once again to the Necro Zoo. I am Bones. And in this one, let's go ahead and add one more figure to my McFarlane DC Multiverse collection. Now today we will be taking a look at Jim Gordon as Batman. Now this is from the Endgame storyline, and also mixed in there with the rookie and heavy duty versions of Jim Gordon. Now the mech suit that he uses in this series is something completely different. I do have the Mattel and the DC Direct version of those, but I'm going to hold off and see if McFarlane does his own take. Now, right now, I think this figure is still on Target's website, so you can order him at your leisure. I myself did order too. And although I am not necessarily a big fan of the Jim Gordon as Batman whole storyline, what I am a big fan of is just the suit design and the style of this version of Batman, which has always caught my eye ever since the Mattel and DC Direct versions were released. Now we will compare with those other versions, do some alternate heads, and in the end I will show actually my own version of this figure that I cobbled together. Now he does look pretty lean and in shape in the packaging, but let's go ahead and take a closer look at him. But first, he does come with your standard black DC Multiverse stand. Now, of course, these are not really needed, but sometimes they do come in useful. He also comes with his data file card. On the front, you have an image from the source material. Now, this is what I mean about, I just love that look, that like leaner, more stealthy look of Batman. Although it is not your traditional Batman, it just has a look that I really gravitated towards. I like the whole like sort of militaristic vibes that you get from it, although it is more based on like law enforcement stylings. It is a very cool looking suit. And this is Jim Gordon as Batman. Now, you might recognize Jim Gordon as like with the mustache and the glasses. And in this storyline, he actually like gets in shape and leans down. I think he has to be like under 6 foot, but like 170, 180, something like that. So he's a real lean character, and that's why it's better for him to be like in this body, because he's not a big, 220 above 6 foot beast like Batman. So this is just a different take and look for the Batman mythos. But I'm a big fan of this. On the back, you do have some information. Little breakdown, pretty cool. We'll hold on to this. Now, he does come with accessories. He actually comes with an alternate head. And this is basically the main reason why I already ordered 2 of these, because of course I must have one and then one to put the alternate head on. That's just one of my collecting habits that I've always followed. And this time it actually worked out really good for me because he comes with a lot of cool accessories. I've actually already ordered 2 more from Target, so those will be here next week because I still need more of these because I have to have one in package for my mint inbox collection. And now I have to have one because I did my own custom version of this character. But pretty interesting head sculpt. You could kind of see it if you look at it. You could see if you take off the mustache, take off the glasses, give him a little bit more of a youthful look and cut down his hair. This can be Jim Gordon. And it is very reminiscent of the comic book art on this character. So really appreciate that, especially for you people that always clamor about getting extra heads. This is what always happens is I have to end up buying 3 or 4 of of the same figure, but that's just, my cross to bear. So, I don't blame it on anybody. It's just the way I collect. Now, he also comes with a bunch of hands. Now, really honestly, I think all these hands should be mandatory standard with all collector's editions like Hawkman, Sinestro, Alan Scott. They should all have alternate hands like this. You do get two fists. You get two open, kind of gesturing, but pretty much basic open hands. And you also get two emoted hands, which is a pointing finger and a thumbs up. We'll hold on to those and talk about those in a little bit. And finally, you do get his sort of Batarang grapnel gun. Now, he does traditionally come with this, with all the versions of this figure that have been made. They always have a grapnel gun. And McFarlane actually did a good job. The design of the gun, of matching it, the only difference is that here he has actually added the sort of grapnel Batarang part to it, which I'm not positive, but I think in the comics he makes this to actually shoot the the batarangs because he's not Batman, so he doesn't have the same skill, but he is a good marksman, so that is why he sort of put together this batarang shooting gun. So that's pretty interesting. We'll hold on to that. But now let's go ahead and take a more detailed look at this figure. First impressions. Now, they do capture that sort of streamlined, all black with yellow accent suit that I remember fondly from images and from the older figures. Really nice. Now, this is based on the John Kent Buck, which a lot of figures have actually been made off of. But since this, like I said before, is a more leaner Jim Gordon, and I know for sure he's not as big as Batman, it kind of actually does work. Now, one big glaring thing I do see is that the head is a little bit large. Now, you can attribute this to Jim Gordon, slimming down to be Batman. So he still has that big noggin, like, after he gets a little bit more trimmer. But at some angles, it does look a little bit large. And we will address that later on in the video. But actually, I do like this figure, so I do want to have one version with this head just the way he comes out of the package. I will not be altering it in any way, and I do like to have one standard release version for my standard shelf. So really nice. The paint apps are once again impeccable from McFarlane. Now, one thing I haven't heard recently is a lot of QC issues with paint. Of course, there always will be with all companies, but McFarlane has tightened it up to where a lot of the paint apps are really executed near perfectly on a lot of figures. So the bat symbol looks crisp. Those sort of corporal stripes that he has on his right shoulder are nice and clean. The yellow really pops from the belt holding his holster around his waist, which is a thing I really always liked about the images from the comics, is the way his suit has that sort of floating holster. Just always something that really caught my eye. But all in all, really nice first impressions. Nice, sleek, all black Batman. Looks really good. Let's take a look at the head sculpt. Now, I really do like the head sculpt. I just think they could have sized it down, maybe, one size lower than this. But in some terms, it does actually work really well. It's just like sometimes you look at it and you could see it. He has that big old coconut head. But yeah, it's fine. Looks really good. I like the paint apps that they put around the mouth portion. The eyes are painted in a really almost grayish white that has like a sullen look to it, which looks really good. The ears are sort of, I think they're supposed to be sort of short in the source material, but these are kind of midway, not too short, but not long. But they kind of do have a little bit of bluntness to them, kind of the way they did the Keaton Batman, but less. It's, you can't really see it that much, but it does have a little bit of bluntness to the ears. And you do get some cool lines on the cowl, like on the brow and above the nose, that you don't usually get from other Batman head sculpts. Let's take a look at the head articulation. Looks down really well, which gives him actually a really cool look. I really like that. Also looks up no problem. Some really nice range for taking some nice figure photography. Of course, you have right to left, and you can tilt his head for some attitude. Actually, really happy with the head sculpt. Although it is a little bit big, it's not too much. It's, right on the line, but I like it. Go ahead and move down. As I said before, you got that crisp bat symbol in yellow on the chest, going down to that cool sort of satchel sash that goes around his waist. Awesome. Let's take a look at the waist articulation. You do have side to side, full tilt-a-whirl, lower waist swivel, upper chest swivel. Could twist them for some action poses. Has a really nice crunch. They have actually made the crunch far superior to the other releases of this body book. He actually dips down really well. And of course, he can lean back per usual. So that's awesome. Take a look at the shoulder. You got that bushing and socket joint. Gives you a lot of range and movement. You got up and down, front to back, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows that actually collapse on themselves that look really clean. Not too much to speak of because this is just a black, clean costume. Goes down into the hands. Now he does come with 2 gripping hands, and on the other side, of course, he has those awesome sort of law enforcement stripes, which look really cool. You can pop out the hands pretty simply. That's not a problem. And you can pop in the fist or any of the hands you would like to use. Now, I have heard some people say, well, the thumbs up and the pointing, they don't really go with this version of Batman. But what's awesome is that a little bit of primer paint, a little bit of paint mixture, and you can actually add these gesturing hands to any of the figures that have this same body book. Right here, I have Beast Boy, and although he came with just 2 hands, now I do have him with a thumbs up. And this hand actually came from one of these Jim Gordon figures. So that's just something that you can use and always open up your range of different hands for your character. So that is a plus. So all in all, looks really good. Get him in a easy T pose. Put his arms above his head. Move down. Now, usually this is where they have a holster for his Batarang blaster, but now they have given my boy a Merce. Not sure why. I mean, pretty much it has to be because of the gun mandate from Warner Brothers. They allowed him to give the blaster, but one thing they would not allow is a holster for it. Now, although that is true, it actually looks really good. I mean, I don't have a problem with it per se for the standard release. You can always put the launcher in his hand and just have him, posed out like that. So that's not a problem. But one thing that is cool is they did make it floating to where the older releases would just, glue the holster on here. They made it to where you can actually still manipulate the legs, and the hip pouch actually like floats with it. So it doesn't restrict the articulation while actually looking a lot better and more of the source material. So this is actually something that McFarlane executed better than the previous releases of this figure. So I got to give him points on that. Now, kind of hard to check out the thigh swivel with that pouch on there, but you do have it at the hip. So you can move his foot from side to side without a thigh cut. Can kick up really high for some karate action, and he can kick back as well. And of course, since the trunks are made of soft plastic, they do move out of the way. And when you put them back, they actually go back to their original shape. Tuck out his knee. He does have that sweet McFarlane hip swivel. Straighten him out, up and down at the ankle, right to left, rocker, and of course, toe articulation. Now, before we go, taking a look at the lower body in total, looks really good. Now, these added sculpt details that are leftovers from the John Kent buck actually do not bother me here because it's just a black suit, and this could be like some sort of like ankle brace or like some sort of padding that they put on the suit. So in my mind, it doesn't really bother me at all. Besides that, no texture, no sort of, added McFarlane sculpt work. It's just basically a plain body, but it works for this character. Take a look at him from the bottom. No tread and no identifying marks. Moving up the back, not much to speak of, but you do get a back glimpse of this sort of sash pouch that he has attached to his thighs. And then moving into the back. Now, the back is one part of this book that I really do enjoy. I love the musculature you could see in there. Now, one negative is that most of these figures that reuse this buck have that line cut around the neck where John Kent had skin tone, and these figures just inherit that sculpt work and it doesn't really match. But you can't really see it here. I think the Nightwing one from the Teen Titans wave is the only figure that actually omits that sculpt work, and it's nice and smooth and clean up to the neck. But in all honesty, does not bother me at all with this figure. So all in all, I'm actually really happy with this figure. I know I'm going to have tons of fun posing him and putting him in different situations. He's actually really flexible. As I said, the pouch moves to allow you to bend the legs and get him in some crouching poses. So that always is appreciated. Really cool figure. No, I'm going to be having tons of fun with him. Now, of course, I did buy 2 of these so that I can actually display the other one with the alternate head. Now, the alternate head does actually fit a lot better on the body. It doesn't look so big. Although it's probably just a millimeter smaller, it's not a big difference. It does actually blend in nicely with this body book. Actually, I think the Batman head would look a lot better if it was more the size of this unmasked head of Jim Gordon. But the sculpt work and everything fits perfectly with the figure. It works really well. Now let's get into the comparisons real quick. Of course, we did have the Mattel released version of this character. And I never noticed this, but the head sits really low on the peg and it kind of makes his like like he has no neck. And I adjusted this really simply by pulling up the peg, and it looks a lot better now. And I've had this figure for years and I never even noticed that until I started noticing these sorts of details, like with the McFarlane figures, that they could use a little bit of extended pegs sometimes. So it does look a lot better now. And they, of course, Mattel did give us the unmasked version, which is why I have 2, so that I can display one of each version. Now, if you look at the holsters on these, they kind of just added it to the belt, and it's more just like a cage holster where it doesn't really, it's not enclosed. But they do have the blaster that goes with it. And of course, how I said, McFarlane actually matched the design of that Batarang shooter. So really cool. Now, I do like these figures, but they were never my favorite. I'm actually starting to appreciate this one more because I raised the head so it looks better. But the sculpt of this head wasn't really my favorite. And that was until I saw the DC Direct version of this character. Now, this is a beautiful figure, and although it has limited articulation and kind of weird, easily breakable plastic, this is actually one of my favorite alt versions of Batman. This is one of the figures that I used to just have here on my desk and always move around and play with. Executed beautifully by DC Direct, although, it has the negatives from that time of producing figures, but it's still one of my favorites. Now, one of the details I saw is he actually has gray on the bottom of his boots. So I may be doing that to my custom Jim Gordon that I'm going to do. That just, gave me a little bit of ideas. But I love the head sculpt on this version. Looks awesome. Looks like straight from the Capullo art. And the silhouette and the aestheticness of this figure are just awesome. Really love how it looks. One of my favorite figures, actually, of all time is this Jim Gordon Batman from DC Direct. Now, I did talk about the rookie mech suit. I do have both of those, but I'll be looking at that if McFarlane ever does his own version. because those always tie in with this version of Jim Gordon. Now, surprisingly, now I have extra heads that I have to mess around with, and I started looking at different Batmans that I would like to try out. Now, the first one I actually tried out was this, I'm not sure, Future State Batman, which is actually supposed to be one of Lucius Fox's sons. And it actually works really well. The Batman head from here, since it is a little bit large, actually sits well on this body. So that is actually a cool option that I may end up doing, is ordering one of these and just head swapping my extra. I'm actually going to have more when I get in my other figures from Target. So I'll have a head to put on this Batman and then do some color changes to mix it up. That's a pretty good idea of a sort of alternate themed Batman. And the other one I wanted to look at was actually Rebirth Batman. Now, this is actually where I got my idea to do my own version of McFarlane's Jim Gordon, because everybody knows this Rebirth Batman had like a little pea head. It was like really small, even smaller than some of the team figures. Like his head was tiny. And I thought, how would that head look on this Jim Gordon, bat suit? But alternately, how would that big old noggin look on this Rebirth Batman? Now, actually, it looks really good. And the positive about this is it actually makes him a little bit taller because his head isn't so small. So this is actually a sort of head swap kit bash that I might actually look into doing. And actually, I want to build a more Rebirth Justice League, and this guy fits in perfectly with the Wonder Woman that I want to use and that kooky looking Superman that has become my favorite Rebirth suited Superman. The three of them actually look awesome together. So I am probably going to order another Rebirth Batman to use to make this, base for a Rebirth Justice League. Now, these three just look really good together. So that takes me into my custom. And actually, what I did is the Rebirth head from Rebirth Batman fits right on here on this neck peg. And it gives this figure like a whole different look because the head doesn't look so like big and jarring. This head actually fits perfectly and actually resembles a little bit more of the Capullo artwork than the one that McFarlane did. So it actually fits perfectly with this body because it's not so large and it gives it a more streamlined look and an awesome silhouette. So this is actually my custom version of Jim Gordon as Batman. So another thing I wanted to do was actually add a real working holster. So what I ended up having to do was actually detach the batarang from the blaster and figure out a holster for the actual strap setup that they have going on here, because what I did want to do was I didn't want to just glue it to his leg. I actually wanted to use those same straps, which allows you still to move the leg, and the holster actually floats and moves with the movement, which is something I did not want to lose when I did this custom. And as you can see, it fits perfectly. The blaster actually is in there. You can pull it out and put it in his hand. He looks awesome. Looks cool also with the batarang detached. And when you're done, you can actually replace it quite simply. Now, I will warn you, when I did this, I used one of the Thomas Wayne holsters, but I really had to modify the inside to allow this blaster to slide in because although it's not very thick, it is actually wide, so it's hard to get it to slip in and out of the holster. But after a little bit of work, I got it to work perfectly. Love the way it still moves on the leg. I, painted it black, added some little like details to it to make it match more of the pouch that they had on here. And with this new head, it's actually one of my favorite figures. He looks awesome. Had a lot of fun posing him, putting him in different positions. So the way McFarlane executed the holster, the way you get tons more articulation, These figures will not break on you like the DC Direct is like the plastic is really iffy. This is actually going to be my preferred version of Jim Gordon as Batman. So really happy with the way that came out. Gonna be awesome when I get my other two figures from Target and I'm actually able to display the unmasked head, the masked head, and I still have my custom version. But you guys keep hunting out there, keep collecting, keep customizing, and I will see you on the next one.
They used to call me Crazy Joe, but now they can call me Batman.